So Terry,
Yes.
thanks for climbing into the BuzzBubble. It was a pleasure to have you, and we're going to just jump in.
Fantastic.
Wave branding, is that a term you guys have coined? And tell me a little bit about what it does and how you use it to grow a brand.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we created the concept of wave branding, and the whole idea is, we put culture at the center of everything we do. So we're watching what's happening in culture from the smallest little fringe signals to things that have gone mass, right?
Right.
And wave branding is the concept of catching those things when they're very first forming and connecting brands to them and then riding the wave. And we believe that for brands to be successful today, you have to create relevance. And to create relevance, you have to be synchronized with what's happening in culture. So the whole idea is if you can capture it early, and then you can ride it until it really it becomes mass, then you have an opportunity to be in the middle of the conversation as opposed to trying to buy your way into the conversation.
Right. The most challenging thing for me to get my brain around is the tying into the conversation. So
Sure.
tell me about how that happens and how it stays sincere to a brand's voice.
Yeah, so one of the things that we do with every brand when we start is we understand the brand's DNA. And a DNA is, if you think about the values of a brand, which has been done in advertising forever, right?
Right.
We do something similar where we understand what makes that brand tick, but we do it not only from what the brand says, but also from what the consumer says, and then we look at where those overlaps are. So if this is on one side is what consumers think about the brand, on the other side is what the brand says it stands for. We look at where there's overlap, and we try to understand how we can create communications that are authentic with those consumers. And when we see something burst in culture, we do the same thing with what we see in culture. So say you see something about 3D printing on the moon, random thing.
Okay.
We would go in and we would break it down to its DNA and look at what the DNA overlap is between that cultural asset or that burst and the actual brand.
So I guess is a big part of the process the matching. You can't, just say, oh, 3D branding on the moon, that's a great topic.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we don't have any brands that really align.
Yeah,
So
we have that all
I
the
guess
time.
It's
There's things that are-
finding what is the right conversation to be part of.
Yeah, there's like things that are super popular in culture that your audience, so say I'm targeting millennials, that they are sharing, they're engaging, they're talking about, but it just doesn't have a DNA match. So we look at things on two dimensions. We look at it, how big it is, we call it the energy score, so how much buzz does it have in the here and now, and then we look at how closely aligned it is to the brand DNA. And based on those two dimensions, that's how we determine if it's a good fit for a brand.
Okay.
There are some times that this is a game of, because we're moving fast, right? And so there's sometimes where you go a little bit more with the energy and a little less with the DNA, and there are times where you want to make sure it's a really close DNA, and it really depends on what kind of burst it is. If it's something that's really way outside of what the brand usually connects to, it's really hard to be authentic with that.
Sure.
But if they've connected with things like that in the past, it makes it much easier.
Let's talk about your approach to actually building the content. So you found the match.
Sure.
How do you build that content? And again, you keep using the word authentic, which is great because it's my biggest curiosity is how you do that.
So, there's a lot of process that's required to be able to make real-time content work. And it's kind of funny because you think it's real time. I mean, it just seems like it happens and it's very reactive, right?
Right.
It's not really. I mean, the way we go about it and what we kind of see as one of the huge differentiators in our newsroom model is that we have a very robust methodology for understanding culture. So we identify culture, we map it, and we may go in and look at a particular audience. I'll use millennials again and hone in on what makes millennials tick. What have they shared the most? What have they engaged with? What channels they use? What language they use? And from that, it allows us to pre-build content. And we base it on this 70-30 rule. Like 70% of the content is built out. So imagine it's an infographic or it's a video, and that's held in what we call reserve. And then we see a burst happen. So something happens in culture, and we say this is an opportunity to use this content that we've created, and we tweak it, and we make a small tweak as opposed to building it in real time.
Right.
We're making a small tweak to it, and that small tweak makes it relevant to whatever's bursting, and that allows you to still be of the moment, but not be reactionary, because you're actually still tapping into the cultural zeitgeist, but you're using a methodology to get through the bureaucracy of the layers within a brand, legal, all those type of things.
Is it always as the brand voice? What is the medium for you?
It varies. I mean, I think there are times where we do things that are directly as brand. There are times when we test things that are trying different ways of seeing if it connects. Because the thing about real-time marketing and using a newsroom is that you have the opportunity to optimize. So you can go out with different little pieces. You know, sometimes we use paid media, sometimes we use the brand's own channels, sometimes we use other channels that are not owned by the brand, therefore you don't have to be as direct, right? And so all of those are part of the toolkit.
Engagement is finding the voices that are already trusted, and you engage and farm for these other people to kind of get on board and say, you know, we've noticed that you've got a connection with our target. How can we work together? Is that part of?
Absolutely. So when you think about like influencers and how you tap into influencers, we use them in a wide range of ways. So we think about influencers on the front end because people, well, I just go back to 3D printing.
Okay.
If we were looking at 3D printing and we identified all the people that were having conversations around 3D printing, that these are the individuals who are creating the greatest influence in a particular topic. They also become individuals that we'd want to watch to help us get our hands around the language, the predictors, so forth and so on. Once we actually have built content and we're distributing it, we want to collaborate with those individuals to be part of that distribution process. So it could be seeding content with them, it could be watching what they're doing and getting them engaged in a conversation, all of those things. And that allows for them to pick up what we're doing and they share it in their own voice, which is very authentic to the conversation.
Right.
Which is what brands have to do to be in the middle of it. You know, if you really want to operate a newsroom, build content in real time, you have to find a way to authentically connect with the people who are having those conversations. Otherwise, it's one way, right?
Right, which is not the model.
Yeah.
Let's talk about recognizing the patterns and accelerating the movement of sentiment and what percent human and what percent software technology, and you know, I'm sure it's a mix.
Yeah.
What do you think that percentage is, and what are the elements?
It's a great question. It's probably 50-50. And so what I would say is we've built a platform, we also call it the Wave Branding Platform, which consists of a bunch of different tools, a series of algorithms that allow us to basically take all this noise, get it down to signals, which basically become opportunities for brands. And you need tools in order to do that. Then we have cultural strategists, data scientists who make sense, synthesize it, and turn it into actual opportunities that make sense for particular brands. So it's a combination. We also, you know, we believe in this model of an open agency. So if you think about traditional advertising agencies, I have my four walls and I build my creative experience within the four walls. Just like how the collaborative economy is changing economics, we believe that also has changed the way the advertising world works.
Sure.
So when we have ideas, we validate those through tastemakers in the market. We have an influencer advisory board of people who are experts or following the trends in movies, design, fashion, fragrance, so forth and so on. We use them as validators. We have tastemakers and scouts in 9 different countries. So it's really a collective experience of trend validation and then of content creation that happens in the collective as opposed to one centralized location. So if you imagine you've got technology that's helping you identify the signals, you've got cultural strategists who are synthesizing and translating to opportunity, and you've got a whole series of people outside the walls of the agency that's allowing you to create what those activations become.
If you had to break it down, you've got the outside group, then inside the four walls of this agency, what are the either departments or titles there? I heard you mention a couple.
Yeah.
What are all the?
So 3 main groups. One is cultural strategy. And those are individuals who really are following the zeitgeist of culture, understanding the latest trends. They come from trend backgrounds, they come from research and planning backgrounds. Then you've got our newsroom group, and this is, you know, we have people from CNN and so forth and so on, and we have people who are actually understand how to take content and turn it into context and angles, and then produce activations, right? So that's all of the actual content side of the business. Then we have a group which is client services / pilots, because when you get into real-time marketing, you have to make fast decisions with your clients, right? And so that means that I'm going to get on the phone, I'm going to say, we've seen, the What the Fox Say video, and here's the match it has to your brand, and here are a series of things we could do with it. And we call that person a pilot. And the pilot kind of works, I don't know, we make the analogy of, if you think about Wall Street and you have a broker and they're saying, hey, you should invest here, you should invest here. Similar kind of thing. They're making these really quick decisions using the quantification from the strategy team, using the activation ideas from the newsroom team, and then putting those back in front of a client to help them decide whether it's a go or no go decision. Some things have a 2-week trajectory, some things have a 24-hour trajectory.
Right,
so you have to decide, fairly rapidly.
And you must have to orient the client to expect these kind of things. Look, I might call you and say, here's an opportunity. Yeah, your nay, go, go now. And your analogy for the stock market, the opportunity's here.
It's here.
20 minutes, it might not
you
be
can
here.
miss it, and it's some of these split-second decisions, right?
Yeah.
And if you think about what the Fox Say, I just used that video, has been out for a while, and everybody's familiar with it. We saw it when it had 12,000 views, and we just
1,000.
Yeah, I mean, and what it has,
infancy.
It has 180 million. I don't
Right,
know how
right,
much
yeah.
at this point. When we saw it, we could tell that it had the attributes of other viral videos that we had seen,
Right.
and we thought, this is an interesting parody video, so forth and so on, and we immediately started tracking it. And within 2 hours, we saw that it was moving at a faster clip than other viral videos that had skyrocketed in the last 90 to 180 days. We then sent it to every single client that we had, right? And we started those conversations. The thing that we didn't know, which I thought was really interesting, is 2 or 3 days in, we realized that this had gone from something that was, millennial based, and it started getting picked up on mainstream media, but then it started really resonating with little kids. And kids love the video. I mean, they would play it over and over and over again. So, our pattern analysis, exactly. It's like nonstop. It's like again and again they sing it, and it's
unbelievable.
And we understood from the patterns that it was going to be big, but sometimes you don't understand how it resonates in popular culture, and until but if you watch it, you start to see those transitions across demographic groups and social graphs.
So you talked a little bit about this. One of your quotes I found somewhere: we operate a data-driven advertising newsroom that helps synchronize brands with culture. So you need to be completely intimate with their DNA, as you mentioned before. What is that process like? How do you get down to that DNA of the brands you bring on to your team?
So basically it happens by, number one, a traditional agency who said this is the essence of the brand. So we adopt that essence, and then we go out and we listen in the marketplace and understand what do consumers really think about the brand, and then we marry those two things together. And if you want to synchronize a brand with culture in real time, because if you think about traditionally, I took the values of the brand, I said this is what I stand for, and now I'm going to use a bunch of paid media in order to ensure that my audience believes that. We're trying to do something different. We're trying to say, if this is what we stand for, we have to understand what the headspace is of our current consumers, and then we have to find out an authentic way to make that connection. So it's very important to have both sides of the coin.
Right.
And then once you have that, you have to produce content that lives in that space, that creates authenticity and creates relevance, because if you only are putting content out that the brand wants to put out, it's going to fall flat.
Right. I love people to attest, if they know me, that inside of an agency and inside of a brand is underestimated as the value. And you mentioned some of the folks solidly in place, it's been established, and some haven't. You find that process of helping them find their culture.
It's funny. It's like if you think about brands, and these are my values, this is my higher purpose, this is what I stand for, and this is why consumers should engage with us. It's like peeling back those layers is great. I think it can be very eye-opening even for a brand. It's like here.
Don't think about it. They don't think it through.
Here's where we are, and here's where what consumers want, and how do we begin to fill those gaps? And
we ask people, why do you show up every day? And to raise our billings and make money is not Tony Hsieh, he said of Zappos said, I could have been anything in the box. I show up every day to give great service. Just happens to be shoes. And, well, they're going beyond that now, but they really got to help clients find that purpose.
I think that a higher purpose is key, and I think brands demand it even more. And I think the model of I purchase media and I look at my total reach and frequency and the number of times people see, and I say it again and again and again. we don't live there, right? So now the higher purpose is even more important because I'm trying to connect in real time, and I'm trying to make myself not just something that you buy, but something that fits into your life and that you believe in and has purpose. You know, you think about brands who are taking on bigger social causes and leaning in. You're seeing an evolution of you know, brand used to be just about selling something. Now brands are using what they do, whether, you know, Starbucks trying to get jobs, or, you know, General Mills taking on interracial relationships, so forth and so on. Brands are saying, hey, we not only have a higher purpose, but we have things that we believe in as brands, and we're not going to back off. And you know, when we go out after those kind of things, we're going to lean into them. And I think that makes a difference for consumers.
And that's where the consumers really connect.
They really connect because they're like, oh, this brand has purpose. You know, it's meaningful, and I feel good about spending my money with this brand.
I read something where you said it's time for most of the Fortune 1000 to move from paid media and a campaign-centric world to content and culture-centric world. Totally agree. How do you get a behemoth like a GE or a Ford, or, you know, how do you get these big guys to recognize and make that move? I mean, it's a huge challenge.
Yeah. So, you know, I think most CMOs already have realized that what they have done in the past is not necessarily working, and that the landscape is changing rapidly, and it's probably changing more rapid than they even can imagine because of what technology is doing
or want to recognize.
But I think everybody's clamoring for, how do I move faster? How do I create greater relevance between my brand and what's happening in the world? And we've been playing with this concept of, you know, if we've built a newsroom, we've built an agency that helps brands get synchronized with culture. It's about relevance, and I think an agency of relevance is required by every Fortune 1000, because what are they doing? They have their PR firms, they have their social firms, they have their traditional agencies, but who's creating that infusion of what's relevant and translating that from a consumer standpoint? So I think when you think about these big, you know, Fortune 1000, you have to articulate that in the language that they understand, and it fits into a system, but yet it's going to take them on a completely different journey, because if you start thinking about becoming more relevant, you then have to have a different methodology. You then use paid media not maybe just to build your brand and get people to think what you want to say about your brand, but you use it as an amplifier. You know, you get in that conversation and then you amplify the conversation. So it's a flip. You know, I think we went from totally paid media, then we went into content that was completely calendar based, and now we're saying both of those are neither of those are authentic, right? Because one, it takes too long to be connected to culture. The second is we're doing it on Thursday just because, you know. But that, I have a conversation with you because we're connecting, right? It's like there's some kind of connection happening, and when brands also participate in that way, they seem real, you know.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've been forced to do this, and it's uncomfortable. I think it's easier for these bigger brands to engage you probably and say, well, what are you? Are you a media agency? Are you a creative agency? Are you? So what's your answer? I mean, you know, if I had to say, you guys are journalism and media, and, you know, and a matchmaker.
Yeah, I mean,
detection and matchmaking.
Yeah, it's the question that everyone asks, because, you know, I have
because they have to. It's easier. They're going to go sell it to somebody
else. I have to compartmentalize it, and I have to tell procurement on how to. This is what I'm buying, and is it replacing something? You know, we've definitely have you know, we have clients where we're social media AOR, we have clients where we're helping them with innovation opportunities, white space opportunities. But I think at the end of the day, we're talking about the space around agency of relevance. You know, it's like what companies need, and what you're actually purchasing is a company that is watching and keeping their finger on the pulse of culture and translating that into everything you do, every aspect. It cuts across how you plan events for PR. It cuts across the media and how you purchase media. It cuts across your television campaigns, your CRM campaigns, across the board. And I think that is where the space is going. You know, it's like, 10 years ago, no one was hiring a social media agency, right? And so now everyone has a digital and social media.
I have an agency.
I have an agency, and they're doing that, and it's like, but are they really? You know, and like, we're relevant. And I was like, well, but that was something that happened 8 months ago, and now you're putting it into market. I mean, relevance means you're of the moment. You know, you're there with your consumers.
The other challenge, as we've all specialized over time, is that collaboration. done that? Is that a challenge? Okay, the agency of record has this, and we're going to work together on X and Y, and it's always been a challenge.
It's always somewhat a challenge. I mean, anytime that what you do overlaps with another agency, there's always going to be challenges there. I think the best thing is to understand what the handoffs are between those agencies and create something that makes everyone get value. And so if you think about culture and relevance, I can translate that to something that'd be valuable for BBDO, something that would work with PhD, from a media standpoint or from a PR standpoint. In the actual content creation and distribution, that's probably where there's more overlap, right? Because there's already an agency who is distributing from a social standpoint, or there's already an agency purchasing media and so forth and so on. But I think there can be a really beautiful way of bringing culture into every aspect of what a marketer does.
So things here move fast. You have to, as you mentioned before. So are you guys on 24/7? How do you handle that? For instance, Super Bowl Sunday, the lights go out. Somebody was on top of it. I mean, how do you handle the communications inside the agency when something pops?
Yeah, it's really
off hours.
Because I mean that's kind of what it's part of the DNA, right? So the data feeds and alert systems are 24/7. So we're ingesting, whether it's the Twitter fire hose, YouTube API, scraping blogs, watching media. We have all of that coming in 24/7, and we have an alert system set up to alert us to anything that, just like you see something that pops. The team then has a process. So it's very similar to the way the newsroom would work. So like if you're at BBC and breaking news happens, it doesn't mean that every single person is there at that moment. But every single person has to know what their role is. And so we do something that we call swarms, and we come together in really short, quick bursts. Everyone has a role, and then everyone understands. So say that the lights did go out, right? And when something happens, the team comes together, everyone knows what their role is, everyone then understands what the quantification is around the cultural burst, then people go off and do what they need to do and come back together again. And that's kind of how you would deal with breaking news. If a tornado touches down in Kansas, you basically have your newsroom staff that comes together. They all have specific roles. One person is thinking about the angles, one person is thinking about getting more source details, so forth and so on. So very similar, and you have to be able to move rapidly. But the only thing that allows you to do that and not be reactive is having some kind of process for doing it.
Right.
That's why like the inspiration from the newsroom and what that industry has. The advertising industry will never be like the newsroom industry in totality, but there's lots of things that they have perfected that make this idea of working in real time and moving at the speed of culture, like you have to adopt those things.
Right. We've been so focused on social media. Do you have, and you guys are very good with innovating new terms and new vocabulary. Two things: social media, what would you really like to call it, and what do you think is a good future title for somebody on the client side? We always love the CMOs, Chief Marketing Officer, they handle everything, but somebody on your counterpart on the client side who would be there to react in real time.
That's good. I mean, when I think about social media, there's a guy, his name is Jeremiah Oyang, and he was a trend analyst for Forrester, and he followed social media from the beginning until now, right? And one of the things that he said recently is that we lived in a world where social media was born, then we talked about customer experience and customer engagement, and now we've moved into the collaborative economy, and the collaborative economy is task and sharing economy. I think there's something to that, because I think within the collaborative economy, social media is one component that allows those kind of micro communities to form quickly and wrap commerce and services around them. I think that is the evolution, and I think if we start thinking in the terms of what that collaborative economy looks like, it changes social media from being about pushing tweets on Twitter and Facebook posts to something super meaningful,
right?
Because it's an economic driver at that point. So I mean, when I think about it more in those terms. As far as titles, I mean, internally, we have titles like cultural strategist. We have a pilot who's that individual who's making those quick turn decisions. There's probably someone who's head of branded content that is in content strategy for at a very senior level, which is a good counterpart. Someone who is in charge of innovation. There's also the chief cultural officer, so that's been thrown around a lot. Even a book written on it is another title that would probably really understand what we're doing and how to create that relevance. Well, if I think about the future, and I think out a little bit from where CEOs and CMOs will go, I think we're going to move into this world where we have companies that are completely fragmented, right? You have makers and creators and all of these individuals who are coming together, and you're co-creating products, brands, you're sharing in the revenue, and I think you have to have a different kind of CMO even, and probably call it something different. It's almost like we toss around this term of someone who knows how to manage a distributed ecosystem, because companies still think that everything they build is within their four walls. That's going away very rapidly, because with the makers movement and creators and all of those things, it's a completely different set of skills that are required to manage that kind of infrastructure.
Socio-cultural newsrooms serving brands instead of readers, how cool is that? And you guys, a lot of evolution left, constantly evolving, where's it heading?
I'm glad you think it's cool. That's good.
It is. I think it's,
that's good.
We'll talk afterwards. We got to do some work together.
We've been doing it for 2 years. So we started the company in January of 2012. We built the algorithms and platforms, and we started taking clients on back half of last year, and now this year we've worked with 16 brands. So it's grown very rapidly. I think it's constantly changing. I think that the space is changing. I think that what we've done in bringing together this trend identification, that trends that are quantified, with the newsroom model, with this kind of quick turn Wall Street portfolio methodology, is pretty advanced. And I think if you look at a lot of other agencies, they've tried to do newsrooms, but it's been like a bolt-on. It's been like another little appendage onto an agency, and they struggle because it's not core. Here, it's basically woven into the DNA. We wake up every day and we say we eat culture for breakfast. That's what we do. We live to pivot very quickly. But there are a lot of things that we haven't figured out, Right. And as things shift, and it's as simple as also saying technology just keeps getting better, and so it makes some of the things that were hard for us 12 months ago are easier today, just because the technology's gotten more advanced.
Right. Let's wrap up with a little fun.
Okay.
We're going to play a game that we like to call subjective, hardly interesting trivia.
Okay.
All right.
Which advertising lingo word is more annoying and overused? Big data or synergy?
I'll go with synergy, Tom.
They're both overused. Big data is like, it's nonstop. It's all, it's like, though it is super important, every single thing that has to do with anything is big data.
Right.
Right?
Anything that has a number on it or comes in volume.
Yeah. We wrote a future of relationships piece that went out yesterday. It was covered by Fast Company, and in it we talked about just the big data of sex, like how you quantify your sex life. And even when I'm saying that, I'm like, seriously? And I was like,
wow,
I've even taken like big data into the bedroom.
Oh man, I'm probably not going to score well.
The bigger the data, the better. Size does matter, and when it comes to data.
Miley Cyrus, embarrassing teen star or brilliant marketer?
Brilliant marketer, I love it.
I thought that was right up your alley.
Here's the funny thing. Twerking, just as an example, we have been talking about forever, right?
Really?
It's like, I think since we started the company, we've been, and clearly she made it a moment, right? But what was so beautiful is that it was twerking at the VMAs, it was, the wrecking ball, and then the memes that came from it, and she's just done one thing after another.
Now she
you
owns it.
can love her, you can hate her, you can think her music's great, you can think it's horrible, but it's from a marketing standpoint, it's a powerhouse. It's like incredible.
Today's show, they wake up, they're talking about her the next day, and then somebody said, do you think it's this or that? And they said, doesn't matter. We're
Doesn't
talking
matter.
about
It's like from a PR standpoint, and you know, and those are the kind of things. If you think about like something that you might want to jump onto, it's definitely relevant for certain brands. I mean, you know, most of the brands that we have, it probably wouldn't have been a good play, but there were a couple that we have that we did go back and talk about. Is there something you do with the wrecking ball, or are there ways to, you know, there's just little thematic things that she brought to life, you know, and she continues.
Smart.
Yeah.
Amazon introduces drone home delivery. What will be the first crime perpetrated against an Amazon drone?
Oh, against the drone. Gosh. I think someone will steal the drone and turn it into a drug delivery service. So I think you'll have your pot delivered directly to your to your front porch. You know, it's like so Amazon, it comes in, I take the drone, I hack it, and then I have it deliver weed.
Amazon High.
It was exactly.
Which campaign is the smarter dump campaign? Kmart, ship my pants, or KFC, I ate the bones?
I'll go with ship my pants, mostly because I like to say it.
And did you see? This is just I'm adding.
Okay,
on, like that. Then they had a second one that did pretty decent, and then like this week they had the one that was the two people shopping, and it was, I think it was for layaway or something, but it was a GIF of them. Like, did you see that one?
No.
Yeah, so it's gotten a lot of backlash because number one, they said it's just too much trying to co-op culture, but and then they're like GIF versus GIF, and so you've seen all kinds of people like debating like whether it just is more out of sync than in sync with culture.
Wow.
So but they have something that's at least creating buzz, because anytime they're doing something now, it automatically pops up in our bridge.
It's disruptive, and they're getting recognized.
So you know. It's kind of like the Anchorman stuff. Like they've pushed that movie, pushed it, and then like in the last few weeks, it's started to get a little backlash. But the question is, do you get people that wouldn't have seen the movie because you've been in so many places, you know? And if I think the answer is all in how well it does at the box office. So I think we'll wait and see.
But
it's
getting
a
good point,
backlash.
though. I think you're right.
People.
I think there was a point of diminishing returns where you've just pushed it too far.
Yeah, we just started seeing that though recently. In the beginning, it was really cool. Then it was like, this is brilliant marketing. Then it was like, that's kind of bizarre. Again? Then it's kind of like, really? You know? It's like,
come on, man. Well, Terry, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, how about a quick tour?
Yeah, let's do it.